A few months ago, I was invited to Sony Camera Camp for the announcement of the new Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, a camera that I will be properly reviewing in the very near future. While I was down there, I was amongst a very diverse group of fellow creators who all made a wide variety of different kinds of content from myself. I was curious as to what the first camera each creator I spoke to used. As someone who has had a deep love of technology and cameras for a very long time, I was surprised by some of the answers that I got. So today we will hear from 9 other creators what their first camera was, one thing that they liked, one thing that they didn't like, and at the end, I'll reflect on everyone's answers as well as my own. Let's get started.
Luke, what was your first camera?
My first camera was, I don't know if this counts, but it was my MacBook, and I would go around filming with my MacBook.
What?
And just like open it, because it's like a 2-in-1. It was like the tripod, but then also, and then just editing and iMovie. That was my first camera.
That's how you got started?
That's how I got started.
Amazing. So, okay, if you were to talk about then your first like dedicated camera, what was that?
I think my first dedicated was the, I'm gonna say Canon Rebel T3i, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it's called.
Yeah. What did you like about it? And what did you not like about it?
I was just beginning, so I liked that I had a camera, but then I think it honestly wasn't that good, especially like trying to film when it was dark. I remember that was not good.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you were to recommend a camera for somebody, what would you recommend to them? They're starting out.
I honestly really think iPhone is great if you're like starting from nothing, especially because most people have a smartphone, and just to like get into it. But then if you're stepping up your game, I generally think like any of the Sony cameras, they just released the ZV-1 E10 II, and that one's, I think the technology is just so good, so I don't think the camera necessarily matters, but if you invest in more, I think you'll get better quality.
Okay, Ben, what was your first dedicated camera?
All right, my first dedicated camera that I bought was a Sony Handycam just like this, and it was awesome. Honestly, I loved learning, manual settings on here, but full auto is fun, crazy zoom, good stabilization. I made so many videos on this thing. I kind of want to make a comeback. Okay, so I really loved, the zoom. I really loved that stabilization. I love that versatility of kind of running and gun, just, zoom in, get the shot, no switching lenses, none of that fuss. But the downside was that smaller sensor. I mean, it's still 1 inch, but you could kind of tell that it wasn't that mirrorless, shallow depth of field, cinematic look. And so that was kind of one of the downsides.
Okay, Sydney, what
Yeah.
was your first dedicated camera?
Ooh, wow. Okay, so my very first camera was the Canon Rebel XTI. Like, that was the first time I was using a DSLR camera. Like, just to have that depth of field blew my mind, and I shot so many stuff that led to like wedding photography and, eventually YouTube. But yeah, the XTI. The one thing I loved about the Rebel XTI was how easy it was. Like, I started off with a Nikon. That was a little too confusing, but the Rebel XTI, like that became like my main first camera, proper camera, because it's super easy to use and the image quality was so nice. And then one thing I didn't like about the camera, I didn't like the low lights. Like, I didn't realize it at the time, but having a camera that's capable in low light is very important, and so I was very limited with the XTI. Oh, wow. If I were to recommend someone their very first camera, I would probably, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. I guess I'd probably recommend the Sony ZV-1 Mark II. It's wider. It's a great all-in-one camera as a starter camera, fairly affordable. And so yeah, I'd probably recommend the ZV-1 Mark II.
Hey, Danny. So what was your first camera?
Ooh, I think I was on a Canon PowerShot.
And what was one thing you liked about it and one thing you didn't like about it?
It was pink, so I liked that. It was like circa middle school, I think. And so I liked the color. I liked how easy it was to use. And I probably could have used with not like a fixed lens. Like, it would have been nice to have more options, but it was very entry level.
Great. What year was that? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Probably like 2006 or 7, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, retro. Okay, they are selling on eBay right now for like a decent amount of money because my nostalgia wants me to get one. And I can't find it for like less than like $300. So.
Do you remember what model it was exactly?
No, I couldn't tell you. I could probably look back at my photos and find it, but so check back in with me later.
Sure. All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
One thing I'm already noticing from these answers is that the average creator wants things to be as quick and easy as possible. The more simple the product, the better. That is why I'm glad that Amaran is the sponsor of today's video, because they just released their new Amaran Ace portable LED light. There are 2 versions of this light, a bicolor version or this full color version that I have here. It features 2 magnetic attachments. One is a grid so that you can focus the light onto one specific area, and the other is a diffuser which gives you a slightly softer look fairly effortlessly. Mounting is also quick and easy thanks to the Ace lock, which just snaps on with magnets to either the tripod that is included or a cold shoe mount on the top of your camera. The rear of the Ace is also magnetic, so depending on your surroundings, you can easily mount it in places that no other light would easily fit. This light is designed specifically with creators in mind, and it is really bright for the size. So if you want something that is portable and punchier than basically anything in its class, check out the Amaran Ace at the first link in the video description.
What was your first camera?
Okay, first camera was a digital blue. Remember that? Anyone remember the digital blue?
So you want to make movies like they do in Hollywood? Grab the new digital movie creator from Digital Blue. It's digital, so you can use it again and again.
And then my first real camera was a Canon 7DD, and that's when that dual pixel autofocus just came into play, and it was an absolute game changer because on the Canon T3i, you would manually focus everything. So that was crazy. And then my first Sony was a Sony a7S II, complete trash color science. I wasn't used to shooting on log yet. And then I would say the GOAT was just the a7S III, and I'm still on that camera.
Okay, one thing you liked about the 7DD, one thing you didn't like.
Oh, okay. Well, the autofocus, it was a game changer, and the thing that I didn't like about it was.
So we're like, yeah.
Honestly, I didn't have a lot of opinions back in the day about cameras because I was more into editing. So for me, I was like autofocus, easy, and that's all I needed. Now that I shoot more, I got more into shooting probably like 2017, 2018, that's when I had more opinions.
And if you were going to recommend an easy beginner camera for somebody, what would you pick?
I'm a full frame snob, so I have to say just go full frame. Find a used a7S III. It's the GOAT. It is literally the GOAT.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, Phil, what was your first camera?
My first camera was actually a VHS camcorder that was a hand-me-down from my dad after he bought a smaller mini DV camcorder.
And then what was your first real camera, professional camera?
I want to say my first real professional camera was a Canon GL2, and this was in, I want to say 2003. Because I used to film skating videos, what I liked about it the most was it had that handle on top, and you could put a really cool wide-angle lens. It just looked cool for skating. But the thing that I didn't like about it after a while was that it's just so big.
Okay, Farouk, what was your first camera?
My first camera was Olympus OM2. And I love that camera, but it was a film camera.
And then what was your first photo camera?
My first video, DAC HX5V.
They were really good with naming conventions back then.
It was really good. And when I learned there's actually a logic behind these names, I was mind blown. They told us what it means, and we were like, wow, and then 2 seconds later, no one remembers. So this camera was great. It was affordable. It had very nice features, but when you wanted to move up, when you discover more and more how to use the camera and you require more stuff, it wasn't able to keep up. That's when I switched to 7V, and then so on and so forth, and then RX100, and then here we are.
What was your first camera?
What was my first camera?
First ever, yeah.
Oh, that's such a hard question. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was definitely one of those teeny tiny little power shot cameras. Probably Canon, I believe. I can't remember which one, but the tiny little things. Those are back now. That's how long it's been.
Yeah. Well, okay. From your memory, what's one thing you liked, one thing you didn't like?
About the little camera?
Yeah.
Okay, I liked that it was very small, compact. I didn't like that quality was trash.
For video and photo?
Yeah, for video, it's been so long. I've been doing this for like 14 years. Wait a minute. Okay, there's also a camera that had like a little USB stick that would come out that you would just plug in. Do you remember those? Little flip camera? That was also one of my first cameras. My memory's not great, so it's
I'm gonna have to find a photo of one of those. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was pretty, thinking back now, like it's pretty cool. Okay, hit me, what else?
No, that's it.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. Okay, Justine,
Hello.
what was your first camera?
Okay, so now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I used to use my parents' VHS camera. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So, I mean, I was like a child with one of the big VHS tapes. I don't remember what it was. It was probably a Sony or a Panasonic. I don't remember. But in high school, when I really got into photography and video, we used one of those Sony CyberShot, like a little point and shoot. I think you could only shoot like 15 to 30-second videos. And then from there, when I actually started making YouTube videos early on, I just used the iSight on my MacBook. It was built in. I could edit an iMovie. Done and done.
And then what was your first real camera? Do you remember your first real camera?
First real camera. I know it was a Canon. And I think for the longest time I was using the Canon 70D, and then I moved to the Nikon DSLR that first did video, and then I hopped over to Sony and never looked back.
Cool. And then, okay, do you remember like one thing that you loved about your first like real camera and one thing you disliked about your first real camera?
I mean, I think at the time I didn't really know that there was better because it just took all the pictures that I needed. I did hate that it kind of cut off at like 15 to 30-second video, so I knew there had to be something better out there.
I've already made a video about my first real camera back when I started, which I will link below. However, the first camera that brought me joy and led me to think this might be something I want to do with my life was the Sony Digital 8 camcorder that my dad owned when I was a kid. It shot on 8mm tape and on Sony's proprietary Memory Stick Pro media. I loved playing around with this as a kid because it had both an LED light built into the front and this Night Shot Plus mode that was an IR night vision so you could shoot in total darkness. This was such a super fun little camera, possibly deserving of its own video in the future, so if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments down below. The one common thing that stuck out to me amongst everyone that I spoke to on this trip is that image quality was an issue 10 or so years ago, with everyone's camera eventually lagging behind their quality standards. But in the present day, we do not have this problem anymore, and the experience, ease of use, and versatility are much more impactful aspects of any camera. So if you're someone who wants to become a creator, the camera you use only matters insofar as it inspires you to actually make content. Whether that's your phone or a full-frame mirrorless camera, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't get in your way. I don't like the phrase, your camera doesn't matter, just make good content, that you hear so often. I'm more of the mindset that you should simply understand what your core needs are with whatever you're trying to make and pair that with the right camera for you. Thank you guys so much for watching.